And that is news just in. A three-judge bench of the High Court declines to stop the impeachment trial against Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. The judges, including led by presiding judge Eric Ogolla, Anthony Mrima and Frida Mugambi, have been deliberating the consolidated petitions seeking to stop the impeachment motion against Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. The three-judge bench there terming the applications as premature and anticipatory and saying the petition can proceed unhindered in the Senate, which is already in the House in Parliament, ready to debate this ouster trial against the Deputy President. The High Court there also once again pronouncing itself on the issue of separation of powers, as had been done by the courts previously. But we've also seen Justice Eric Ogolla saying that the court can still offer remedy after this process is complete. And so that now leaves Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua to face his fate. He will be expected at the floor of the Senate later this morning, where the charges will be read to him. He will be asked whether he pleads guilty or not guilty. And he has already, remember, previously pronounced himself, saying that he is not guilty of all the 11 charges that have been fronted against him. The Deputy President, remember, had been very vocal, saying that he is holding trust or keeping his trust in the judiciary, saying that the will of the people cannot be overturned by just a few people. And we've seen the High Court there once again refusing or declining to stop that impeachment trial, a big blow for the deputy who's been working round the clock to put an end, put a stop to this impeachment trial. And so in studio with us to put more context into the court's decision and the activities and the events of the Senate for the better part of the day, we have governance analyst Javas Bigambo. We also have political analysts Kathy Irungu and Stephen Gikonyo. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and many thanks for staying on with us. Kathy, ladies first, let me begin with you. Did the High Court ruling meet your expectations?
Yes, it did. I actually, and I had said it earlier as we started, I simply expected exactly what they have done. And I'm actually now looking forward to the full trial of the Deputy President. And as it is expected, the Senate has actually now laid the ground and, you know, basically the rules on how they are going to proceed with this. And as you said, he's expected to appear in person later on, maybe in an hour or two.
Gikonyo, this was perhaps the last chance for the Deputy President to perhaps stop this impeachment trial. What's next?
Depending on his decision still, he has to face the Senate. He may opt to send his representatives, that's purely up to him. But now it's all the way with the impeachment process in the Senate.
What do you make of the court's ruling altogether, especially on the issue of separation of powers, finding the applications premature, anticipatory, so to speak? What are your thoughts on the court's decision?
I think that is very well done in terms of holding up the law. The Constitution gives the Senate the mandate to do the trial in this manner, and therefore anything that would have gone against that would have interfered with that separation. And the courts were very clear yesterday and now this morning that they are not about to do that, but they are open to hearing any petitions thereafter.
Bigambo, this was pretty much your prediction as well, that the courts will, you know, uphold the same stance on this issue of separation of powers, allow the trial to proceed unhindered. What else do you have to say from that ruling?
Well, the perimeter walls of separation of powers remain high and impregnable. I said that the walls of separation of powers are impermeable, and the courts have just affirmed the same as I had reflected in the morning. You see, it must never be the character of the courts or the judiciary to venture into the province of work or mandate that has been ordained by the Constitution as to rest upon the laps of the legislature. Doing so would amount to enslaving the legislature on a short leash of judicial overreach. And the decision of the three-judge bench right now just affirms that the court has taken into account two critical doctrines. One, the doctrine of separation of powers, and second, the doctrine of judicial restraint in exercising its authority and mandate. The other thing is that we have also witnessed before our very own eyes the echoes of justice, because Honorable Rigathi Gachagua, through his attorneys, has approached the court. The court has listened and said that the imperatives of due process, as laid out in the Constitution, must turn the full circle before the court can therefore get to intervene on procedural issues if at all there has been any impropriety for which redress or remedies and appropriate reliefs can be rendered by the courts if sought by Rigathi Gachagua. This, therefore, leaves the DP with only two choices. One, to hang up his tools and mandate that he took while taking the oath of office about 25 months ago, or to face the Senate. Either way, the choices right now upon the now leaning and apparently feeble shoulders of the Deputy President are that fate has ordained that Deputy Rigathi Gachagua will have a pretty short stay in politics, especially at such national level. And if wisdom perhaps were his lot, the decision to resign would have come out a little earlier. Because right now, if he elects to resign from office, it will be seen as reactionary, developing cold feet, and that he was hanging his hopes on this very small and weak peg of the court decision, which actually was just guesswork. Right now, as it is, now Senate has got the mandate to look at the charges against him, the evidence, and make a determination by tomorrow.
All right.
Either way, I think, or from where I sit in this chair this morning, Deputy Rigathi Gachagua has got a very short supply of very helpful advisors.
And so that is 11 offenses that are hanging on his head, and will be on trial for the next 2 days. As it stands, Kathy, we have, at least one damning affidavit that has been presented. This is after the Deputy President defended himself on the floor of the National Assembly. And so affidavits have come out now with regard to his response to the National Assembly then. And many of them with regard to the wealth that he has acquired, the questions around the amount of wealth that he has acquired. What are your expectations on the floor of the Senate, considering the Deputy President is expected to be there? What are your expectations in the nature of debate and even the nature of the evidence we're likely to see presented?
Yeah, I'm expecting a lot of inconsistencies from the DP himself and his lawyers, because the evidence, the damning evidence that has been shared, or the affidavits that are there, they are actually supporting the motion that was actually presented to the National Assembly. And in his very reactionary nature, he tried to react to it by whipping people's emotions and showing that, I'm really innocent. So I'm expecting a lot of inconsistencies moving forward.
Right. Gikonyo, what are your expectations today, and especially many wondering the kind of defense the DP will come with now after what we saw in the National Assembly?
I think he has put forth his best defense on that Monday that he spoke to the nation. And now we are going to see whether that is refined and whether it enhances his position and whether he succeeds in getting some of those charges dropped. However, the objective of impeachment may very well be realized unless he's able to convince the Senate that all those charges are shoddy, shameful, and however else they've been described, and false. So the objective now is to survive the impeachment, and it's a tall order to do so, given there's so many charges. It's almost like if you want to hit a target and use a stone, you're likely to miss. But if you use a mound of mud, you're very likely to hit it. And so some of those things will stick to the end.
Right. And of course, this whole process has moved so fast, perhaps faster than Kenyans can keep up. And so we're already speaking about a new Deputy President likely to be sworn in by Saturday, some saying by Friday. And so as this ouster trial begins in the Senate this afternoon, and let's just begin with you again, Gikonyo, What are your thoughts on the talk that Kenyans may have a new DP perhaps by Friday, some saying by Saturday? And so we have names of likely contenders who to take over from Gachagua who've already been named. We've had the likes of Interior CS, Kithure Kindiki. We've had the likes of Kirinyaga Governor Anne Waiguru, Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi, even the Laikipia East MP Mwangi Kiunjuri. Judging from the names that you've heard, what are your thoughts on this succession battle? Because the president is at liberty to nominate a new deputy president as soon as the position falls vacant.
Yes, and the president may very well nominate any person of his choice. But I think he should use a category that separates the various candidates. And those categories have to include experience. In my view, the best candidate will have served as a CS previously, will have been elected at least twice. And the reason I say that is because it demonstrates that the electorate has agreed that you're the best leader for them at that time, and they've given you a second, even third term. The candidate should also have held government positions or worked in government, with government, or within government agencies for a period of time with a tangible track record of their performance. And the candidate also must or should have served in the private sector, because private sector gives you tools that enable you to manage timelines, meet deadlines, plan projects, etc. And so having all of those, then it would establish a criteria of superiority, if you will. If not superiority, seniority. In that, if you've served as a governor, and you've served as a CS, and you've served as an MP or elective office for several terms, and you've worked in the private sector, and your track record is tangible, it's measurable, and it can be seen to have been effective, then that should be the most likely candidate. So if we consider Mudavadi, and we consider Anne Waiguru, and we consider Kindiki, and Dinti Nyoro, and Kangata, they all have a semblance of those qualifications. But in terms of seniority, the most senior, of course, is Musalia, because he's been deputy president. But short of that is Anne Waiguru, who has had all those credentials to her name. So when you see people pushing these names, it's because they qualify as potential deputy governors. The challenge for the president will be, given that his detractors have named him names such as Zakayo, or they claim that what he promises are lies, and so on and so forth, he'll find himself bound by his utterances early in the year when he said that Kenya Kwanza will nominate a female deputy president if a male candidate is put in place, and vice versa. If it's a female candidate for president, then the deputy will be male. So he'll find himself bound by those words, but it's not a difficult position to be in, given the criteria I have described. Kenyans want a working government, a capable government, and without distractions and sideshows, such as what has happened now. Sideshow because it detracts government from delivering the promises and delivering the services that it's committed and mandated to do. So it becomes distracting in terms of the objectives of government. Right. So to avoid that, we need qualified individuals.
I'd like to hear your thoughts on, the possible next deputy president, Bigambo, because according to the Constitution, the president is expected to nominate a person to fill the vacancy as soon as a vacancy is available. So should the Senate uphold this motion, then a vacancy will be available by Thursday evening. Political sources show that it is possible that this nomination will be done Thursday evening, with other sources saying the National Assembly will actually have a special meeting on Friday to deliberate on this very nomination. And so it's all moving very fast. That being said, then it's clear then that a replacement has already been picked, so to speak. What are your thoughts, Bigambo, and especially even on the names that have been fronted? Many saying that Anne Waiguru may be leading the pack because of the gender card. Some saying Musalia may be leading the pack because of seniority. What are your thoughts?
When I reflect on the letter from Birmingham City Jail by the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he said that justice delayed is justice denied. Honorable Rigathi Gachagua has availed himself to Parliament to try and adduce evidence to challenge the charges against him. So when the process is moving very fast, it's in the interest of justice to him that actually the process should move very fast so that he is granted the justice that he so badly needs. And so I think we must not frown upon the expeditious manner in which this process is being run, so that in whichever way that the writ may run, it is important that institutions work just as the law anticipated that they work. Secondly, we all know that it is a bad soldier who will always fall on his sword. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, I can now say and confirm that he's going to fall on his own sword. And if he works very thoroughly, he may have just a few of the charges dismissed by the Senate. But it is highly unlikely, using my legal eye, that he has got evidence that can help to overturn all the 11 charges. And that's why his goose is cooked. Secondly, I think also he's suffered the misadvice of some of his advisors who made him have so much faith in his digestive system. And now he has swallowed a whole political coconut and he is constipating. And no laxative can help the process. With regard to persons who are to be nominated potentially as deputy presidents in succession, I think we have no shortage of talent, ability, and leadership. All those names that have been paraded for possible consideration: His Excellency Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi, Honorable Governor Anne Waiguru, Honorable Governor Irungu Kang'ata, Honorable CS Professor Kithure Kindiki. All these are citizens and patriots who I think if any of them is settled on, including even Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, if any of them is settled on, it will be a great thing that, one, they learn from the playbook of Rigathi Gachagua on which pages not to read. Secondly, that in this very monumental period in our history, people are desirous of accountability, good governance, and in line with constitutionalism and nationalism. It is in fact very interesting that we are likely to have a new deputy president as the country's eyes are focused upon Kwale for Mashujaa Day. We want a deputy president who will be a true Shujaa for the entire country, for every region, and for every ethnic person of ethnic orientation or extraction whatsoever. All
right. Even as you speak about that, I understand that the Deputy President has actually just arrived in Parliament. He's expected to be live in the Senate when the ouster trial begins. So, Kathy, it was a wait-and-see moment to ensure whether Gachagua would actually show up. And so there he is, showing up physically after the High Court just gave that decision. What does that say to you?
I expected him to show up, actually. I really expected. It is in his nature, you know, to do such things, and I didn't expect him to just send lawyers and not appear. But having said that, I would like to add my voice on the first question that we had asked on the replacement. I think as I'm seated here as Wanjiku, as an ordinary Kenyan, I'm thinking that the replacement for Gachagua needs to be someone who has a vision for Kenya. And I've actually just picked like 6 qualities. It needs to be a person of high integrity. It needs to be a person who is accountable. I remember the one time he came out gun blazing and he said that the president denied him a chopper or something like that. And when he got the chopper again, he ate his own words. You know, we need someone who can be held accountable. We need a good communicator. I don't think he has been a good communicator all through. And some of the disadvantages of that is, you know, a lot of what he says has been used against him now. Again, we need someone who can take responsibility for his actions, you know, not someone who will say this today and then change tomorrow, because we've been treated to a lot of that by the deputy president. And finally, we need someone who doesn't divide this country further. Thank you.
All right. And we'll be speaking more about that because from the names that have been fronted, there's many questions, especially with regard to the issue of integrity, you know, court cases. I mean, when it comes to the likes of Anne Waiguru, for example, and let me pose this to you, Gikonyo. There's been questions about her resignation as cabinet secretary, whether the allegations of corruption on her person, really, especially at the NYS, have sort of clouded her brand and her political stir, and what that, what that reputation of corruption and graft would have if she was to be nominated as deputy president.
I think what would happen if those were to come up, she would have to defend herself against those allegations. But when we look back, we'll see that there was no impeachment of her from her cabinet secretary position back then. There was no court case against her leveled by those who are accusing her. And therefore, she came out uncharged of the allegations. And secondly, following that, she retreated back to Kirinyaga, where she got elected for the first time. And people thought maybe that was a fluke, but she got re-elected for a second time. And so when you go to Kirinyaga County, you will see a significant difference in what it was before and what it is now. So much so that other counties are coming or are going to Kirinyaga to benchmark on various aspects of development, from the work done in agriculture to increase production, from work to introduce new income streams like fish and chicken and pigs, from increased output of tomatoes, and also the potential to create value addition facilities within Kirinyaga and within the centers of excellence in terms of development. So there's what is known as the industrial parks that is part of the blueprint that she created when she first went into office. And so her record speaks for her. So in terms of issues of corruption or what came up during the NYS and so on, the record is quite clear what her responses were and also what the allegations were.
Right. And so the Senate is in a closed-door meeting as we speak, and it will be, I believe, beginning that ouster trial any moment now. Kathy, again, many did not expect that the deputy president, well, you did, but many did not expect that the deputy president would show up physically on this first day as the ouster trial begins. What are your expectations, really, from the deputy president himself? And I mean, look at the kind of evidence that he brought with him to the National Assembly. And, what stood out most for me is, when he told members of parliament, look, that's the president. He's doing exactly what I did. So I learned from the best. Are we likely to see a lot more evidence, really, that sort of says, I did it, so-and-so did it, so why am I in trouble?
Yes, he's of course going to continue with his fight, just like he did, and that is his right given by the Constitution. But today he's going to stand there as, the Senate reads the charges. So one, the charges will be read, he'll be introduced, his lawyers will be introduced, and then he is also going to, questions will be, there will be fielding of questions from the senators, and he'll be expected to answer those questions. So unlike the National Assembly, where he had, I think, a whole 1 hour plus to just read, his defense, today is going to be very different, and therefore we just expect him to really, do the best that he can. But to me, his goose is cooked.
Right. And so then the DP now is looking to rally at least 23 senators to sort of side with him to counter the impeachment threat looming over him. And looking at the voting patterns in the National Assembly, it's a tall order, so to speak, Bigambo. But are you seeing any hope, any possibility of the DP managing those 23 votes?
Well, Michelle, the DP's Achilles heel is his absolute reliance on voting delegates or voting senators only from Mount Kenya. That is his Achilles heel. And that is why when you look at it, you realize that nothing can save him except perhaps an act of God. When you look at the arithmetics in the Senate, as it was in the National Assembly, when you look at the aspect of coalition building, as I talked about the political matrimony between Kenya Kwanza and ODM now, and the exuberance that this matrimony has brought within the political class, you cannot fail to arrive at a very sober conclusion that the issue of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua appearing in the Senate to defend himself is, I think, just an act of history, misery, and documentation. Because realistically and practically, there is no way under the good sun that Rigathi Gachagua can persuade, marshal, and move the numbers to vote in his favor. Secondly, maybe he just wants also to use the opportunity to clean up or use the process as a detergent for the name of his wife, Pastor Dorcas Rigathi, and his two sons, whom he said that it is his fraternal duty and paternalistic right to protect, help, as he did on the matters of KEMSA, etc. So when you look at it, you realize that the effort could be aged or moving toward that direction, just trying to see how their names can be cleared. And secondly, it is also possible that he may want to use this opportunity to speak with water in the mouth. That if at all it's a question of all these allegations, he may not do the wherewithal and have the wherewithal to exonerate himself, but possibly to point his fingers in very many different directions and say that if it is a question of rot, then the rot is extensive. It is possible that he may want to use that opportunity. Be that as it may, the die is not only cast, it is nearly possible to arrive at an objective, judicious, liberal, and sober conclusion that it is actually an exercise in futility.
And so, I mean, what then now, Kathy, for the political career of the deputy president? And we've heard it all. Many said this was a political witch hunt. We're hearing now that there may be a move to ensure that he does not get any benefits or perks of the DP after this impeachment, should the Senate uphold it. How is that likely to play out?
I think we are at a time where, this is a matter of wait and see. However, judging from what happened to Governor Sonko and Governor Waititu, we remember very well that after the impeachment, they were barred, from running in the consecutive elections. So for the deputy president, if he is barred from running in 2027, then he will become very irrelevant, even in Mount Kenya region. But still, because he enjoys certain support from several quarters, then maybe he may want to do something on the ground. But remember, he has been accused of very grave, issues as you look at them. And therefore, I would expect that after this, he might as well get very busy in dealing with the cases ahead of him.
The DP has been very defiant, so to speak, despite this political wave that he faces. He's been out interacting with Kenyans, telling them to maintain peace and be calm despite the outcome of the Senate trial that we are likely to see. Do you think, what do you think is going through his mind, because this could be the end of his political career, as so to speak. Constitutionally, looking at the legal timelines as well. Do you think there's any gameplay that he has for him?
I think at this point, we have to look at the law. If you're impeached, it is for reasons that are already outlaid against him. Violation of the Constitution, they've also put in fraud and money laundering and numerous other charges against him. If he's able to overcome those, that is well and good. It saves some of his reputation. However, once you're impeached, you cannot then require the public to pay you your emoluments, if you will, going forward, your retirement packs and so on, because you did not retire, you did not serve. In fact, you were stopped from serving for violation of the Constitution. So I don't see any possibility of those benefits leaving office with him. Then the other, of course, is it must be a difficult place to be in for this extended period, where you can see what's coming, but somehow you're either in denial or you're putting up a spirited fight. And a spirited fight he has put up by going to the public, going on multiple interviews, laughing off the possibility of resigning, and pushing back to the point of being perceived as being insubordinate to his boss. And therefore, I think this is the end of the play. Of course, someone can always be involved in politics indirectly, but that's also a very costly exercise. And therefore, and if it follows what some of us expect to see, then if these charges result in court cases, then again he'll be busy defending himself there. So it's a very tough place to be. I don't know what he's thinking or feeling, but he's put up a spirited fight as we expect him to do so, but it may not change necessarily the outcome of the consequences of the impeachment.
I'd like us to begin winding up. Gachagua, let me come to you. It's a game of numbers. 67 senators, 45, required to uphold this vote. But now let's talk about the numbers and the 11 charges. How many charges, do the senators need to find have been substantiated to mandate or to occasion an impeachment of the DP?
Well, of course, Michelle, as the trial chamber, Senate will have to go charge by charge in terms of weighting the evidence level of the allegation leveled against the DP. So it is a question of the DP making sure that he comes up with evidence that can be corroborated against each of those counts, from issues to do with malicious insubordination, the issues to do with his utility of his office for overreach, for personal gain, etc., as it is with charge number 7, and the issues of tribalism and being inverse to national cohesion. He needs to adduce evidence before the trial house that can help or aid the house to exonerate him. But when it comes to the Senate examining every charge against corroborated evidence or substantiated evidence, the issue is that Senate is not tied by any law or necessity to have all the 11 charges proven against Rigathi Gachagua to warrant an impeachment. A single charge alone would warrant that impeachment. And that is why I am particularly perplexed by the phantasmagorical exuberance of Rigathi Gachagua to imagine that he's going to adduce evidence and overturn each of the 11 charges. Well, like I said a little earlier, anxiety is the mother of hope, and I think he's suckling those teats as we sit here.
All right, Kathy, very, very briefly, your final comments before we take a break.
I think my final comment is we'll wait to see what happens, because he has an opportunity to express himself, just like we have said, and it is going to be a very interesting 2 days, today and tomorrow. In fact, this is a historic moment for the country, and we are all eyes on the Senate and the courts as we move forward. But we wish all the best to the new and incoming Deputy President, whoever that choice will be. Thank you.
All right, we'll take a break here on NTV. We're continuing this wall-to-wall coverage as the Senate begins the ouster trial against Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. The Deputy President is already at Parliament buildings, ready for this ouster trial, where all 11 charges will be put to test as senators seek to collaborate all those charges. We're waiting for those live proceedings to begin, as senators are holed up in a closed-door meeting ahead of the beginning of that ouster. The Deputy President perhaps facing more than a 10-hour battle for survival in the Senate between today and tomorrow, as he seeks to capitalize on what has been termed as a widening political divide between Kenya Kwanza and Azimio. Will that be the saving grace for him in the Senate? Only time will tell. We take a short break on NTV. Do stay with us. Much more still to come.
Gachagua. Hii serikali tulitafuta na shida mingi sana. Hatuwezi kubali mtu haribu.
Kenyans will be shocked.
Hiyo ikulu nimeweka mitego kila kona, kila kona. Hapo iko kibarua.
291 members of this National Assembly pended their signatures.